Today, we're delving into a book that marked a significant turning point in how we think about business operations, Business Process Management, The Third Wave, by Howard Smith and Peter Fingar, published in 2002. This work laid the foundation for what the authors argue is a paradigm shift in the management of business processes. They position business process management, or BPM, as a critical framework for success in the 21st century. Smith and Fingar present the history of BPM throughout the 20th century. This is used as a backdrop to predict the future evolution of the discipline over the next 50 years. They describe BPM as the next step forward in business operations and information technology. The third wave emphasizes three key elements: explicit process modeling, automation, and continuous improvement. Together, these features create the agility and efficiency necessary for companies to stay competitive in today's rapidly changing business landscape. While the authors rely heavily on case studies and anecdotal evidence, critics argue that the book doesn't always provide the data necessary to establish its claims. While the insights are valuable, they are grounded more in interpretation than empirical research. Despite its forward-looking ideas, it's crucial to remember this book was written at the turn of the century, during a period of digital transformation still in its infancy. The authors couldn't fully predict the role AI or machine learning would eventually play in BPM. However, their core ideas about agility, automation, and a process-first mentality remain highly relevant. Ultimately, the third wave is a call to action, a call for businesses to rethink how they manage processes, how they align goals with their IT capabilities, and how they prepare for the future. So let's dive into today's podcast. As always, please share, like, and subscribe.
Welcome in, everybody. Ever wish your business could adapt to change? I don't know, kind of like how easy it is to update software these days.
It's a nice thought, isn't it?
That's the big idea. Diving into the world of business process management, BPM, as I'm sure you've heard it called.
Right.
We were going to be talking about how to make businesses run smoother, faster, smarter. And to guide us on this deep dive, we're diving into Business Process Management, The Third Wave today, the book by Howard Smith and Peter Fingar. And if you're someone who perks up at the words competitive advantage,
Who doesn't, right?
You're in the right place. Because that's what this all boils down to, really.
Yeah.
It really clicked that this isn't just another empty buzzword.
And the timing couldn't be better, if you ask me. I mean, things are changing so fast in the business world, it's almost hard to keep up, right? This book was way ahead of its time, predicting a major shift in how we think about work and how we manage businesses.
Exactly. And it's not just about some big companies either. You know, this stuff affects all of us, even if we don't realize it.
They argue that we're on the brink of a total BPM revolution, like as groundbreaking as, let's say, the invention of the spreadsheet.
A spreadsheet revolution. Okay, now I'm interested. But before we get too far into ourselves, let's, define our terms a bit, maybe. For anyone who's new to all this, what is a business process, really? And how does this whole BPM thing fit in?
Okay, so think of a business process as any set of steps, any sequence at all, really, that you go through to get something done. Could be something simple, like fulfilling a customer's order, or way more complex, like, designing a whole new product.
Sure.
BPM is, well, it's basically just a way of saying we're bringing order to those processes, making them efficient, and always looking for ways to make them better.
So no more just winging it.
Exactly.
We're actually, putting thought into how things work.
Yes, intentionality. That's where the magic happens, because when you begin to see your business as this network of interconnected processes, that's when you can really start to fine-tune the whole system for, maximum impact.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this. So let's dive right in, shall we? The book kicks off by describing companies in the early 2000s struggling to keep up. Picture a time before smartphones, before social media took over everything. Simpler times, maybe.
Well, not quite. See, businesses were already feeling the heat to change back then, especially with technology moving so fast. But all the old ways of managing those changes, they just weren't cutting it anymore.
And that's where the authors introduce this idea of, get this, data stovepipes. Imagine each department in a company as this silo, right?
Yeah.
Like they're hoarding information as if it's treasure. They're all working hard, but they can't really share what they know or collaborate effectively, which, as you can probably imagine, creates some major, major bottlenecks.
It's like trying to bake a cake, but every single ingredient is locked away in a separate room. Total chaos, totally inefficient.
Exactly. And the book makes this point that this was happening because fundamentally the business world was changing. It was shifting from this focus on just churning out products to providing services, creating personalized experiences, things way more intricate than just pumping out widgets on an assembly line.
And that's where it gets interesting. This shift meant they needed a whole new approach to management, something more adaptable, more responsive than those old, rigid, top-down models of the past.
So they've laid out the problem right. Companies are stuck, struggling to keep up in a world that's changing faster than ever, held back by all these outdated processes. How'd this whole BPM thing, go from a kind of niche idea to like mission critical for any company that, wants to survive, let alone thrive?
Well, they kick things off with a really interesting point, and they say, imagine a company like Amazon completely dominating an industry. Not because they have some killer product, but because their processes are light years ahead.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. Like Amazon's 2-day shipping.
Exactly.
That wasn't some magical feat. It was just a really, really meticulously designed process that gave them a huge edge.
Exactly. That's the power of BPM when it's done right.
Okay.
And it's becoming even more crucial in today's business landscape. Smith and Fingar lay out 7 major trends that are really pushing companies to rethink how they do things. So think about it. Customer service is king now, right? It's not enough to just have a great product. The entire customer experience needs to be top-notch. And then there's this rise of mass customization. Everyone wants something unique, tailored to their needs, right?
Right. Gone are the days of churning out the same thing over and over again.
Exactly. And companies need to be agile enough to handle that.
Yeah.
On top of that, think about how industry lines are blurring.
Yeah.
You've got tech companies moving into healthcare, retailers becoming tech giants. It's a whole new ballgame out there.
It's true. You never know where your next competitor is going to come from these days.
Exactly. And with all that comes this demand for more transparency. Customers want to know what's happening behind the scenes, how things are made, where their stuff comes from, all of that.
Right. And then with the pace of change just accelerating all the time, businesses need to be able to adapt so quickly.
Absolutely. And that's where BPM comes in. It's not just about keeping your head above water, right? It's about riding that wave of change and actually using it to your advantage. But to really get BPM, we need to understand why the old way, what they call business reengineering, was failing so miserably. Picture this. You've got a leaky faucet, right, dripping annoyingly. Now, instead of just tightening a bolt or swapping out a washer, you decide the best course of action is to tear down the entire wall to get to the pipes. That's basically what business reengineering was like.
Wow. So instead of just like fine-tuning the process, they were using a sledgehammer to fix a thumbtack problem.
You got it. Complete overkill. And that's where BPM comes in. It's all about taking a step back, looking at the processes themselves. How do they actually work? Where are the inefficiencies? And then figuring out how to optimize them, make them adaptable, scalable.
So instead of demolishing that whole wall, BPM's like having the right tools for the job, right?
Yeah.
No sledgehammers needed.
Precisely. Working smarter, not harder, as they say.
It really does feel like companies need to be more agile than ever just to keep up.
You've got that right. And it's not just about speed either.
Okay.
It's about efficiency, adaptability.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think of it like the evolution of how we manage data.
Okay.
Remember those old days of clunky, isolated systems?
Oh, I remember those days well.
Yeah, but then databases came along,
Right.
offering one central source of truth for all that information. BPM offers a similar advantage, but for entire business processes.
So instead of every department doing their own thing, BPM helps create a more unified approach.
Exactly.
So how do these trends actually impact the average person listening right now?
That's a great question. Think about it. Are you feeling pressure to do more with less, to work faster, to constantly learn new things, right? These trends are impacting everyone. And understanding BPM can give you a framework for navigating this new world of work. It's about working smarter, not harder.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down, but I have to admit this all sounds a little familiar, So what makes this third wave of BPM any different?
Yeah, no, it's a valid question, and Smith and Fingar actually address that head on. They say a lot of those reengineering attempts failed because they treated business processes like setting them in stone. The book does not shy away from the intensity of that era.
Really?
It even quotes Michael Hammer, the reengineering guru himself, talking about shooting dissenters.
Wow.
Metaphorically, of course.
Right.
You overhaul a process, call it a day,
Right.
and then you wonder why it wasn't effective a year or two later.
Yeah, it's like trying to use the same map from the 90s to navigate today's roads. I mean, things change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it highlights how disruptive and almost combative those overhauls could be.
Yikes. Definitely not for the faint of heart.
No. This new wave of BPM is all about adaptability.
Okay.
It's about seeing your processes as dynamic, ever-evolving systems that need that constant attention.
Okay.
So, imagine you're hiking a trail, right? You can only see a few feet ahead of you.
Right.
But with this approach, it's like you've got this bird's eye view of the entire landscape, allowing you to strategize and adapt on the fly.
So no more tunnel vision.
Exactly.
We're talking panoramic views for our processes.
Precisely.
And they use this great image in the book. They say, imagine getting in a helicopter and flying above the hills. This elevated bird's eye view reveals the process level of business design. It's about seeing how everything connects, how all the different parts of a business rely on each other. And once you understand that, you can start to optimize the entire system, not just individual pieces in isolation.
You know what's fascinating is even back in '97, Gartner, the research firm, put out this note titled 9 Reasons Why IS Organizations Do Not Do BPM. Even then, people struggled with it.
Really? What were some of the roadblocks back then? Anything that still rings true today?
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest hurdles was just getting everyone on board.
Right.
Right. A lot of people saw BPM as just another IT project being forced upon them, something that would disrupt their workflow without any clear benefits.
Yeah, change can be tough, especially when it comes from that top-down approach.
Right.
And the people on the ground don't really understand the why behind it.
Right. And back then, a lot of people thought BPM would slow them down.
Right.
When, ironically, effective BPM can actually make things leaner and faster.
Interesting. Okay, so there was this disconnect between its potential and how it was perceived. But what are we talking about with this new wave? How is it different?
This third wave of BPM aims to do for processes what databases did for data.
Interesting.
It's about freeing them from the confines of specific applications, making them more accessible and adaptable.
So we're moving from an application-centric world
We are.
to a process-centric world.
Yeah.
It's like processes are finally getting the recognition they deserve.
They're getting their due.
But how do we actually make this happen? What are the key ingredients that make this third wave a reality?
One of the core principles is about creating this universal language for business processes, something everyone in the company can understand, from IT to marketing to sales, even your customers, right?
So breaking down those silos that can make companies feel like a bunch of separate departments instead of one cohesive team.
Exactly. It's about getting everyone on the same page and working toward that shared goal. In the book, they compare it to CAD/CAM software for engineers, those programs they use to design and test products virtually.
So instead of just drawing a product on paper, they can create a 3D model, test it, tweak it, before anything's even physically made.
Exactly. BPM is like that, but for optimizing your business processes, bringing that same level of agility and precision to how you operate. Think of it as the internet for business processes.
Internet for business processes.
Okay. It allows different systems, different departments, even different companies to speak the same language when it comes to processes. Imagine a world where a marketing system can seamlessly talk to a sales system, which can then talk to a fulfillment system, all using the same language.
No more siloed systems, no more translation headaches when it comes to defining and managing processes. That's incredibly powerful. But tell me more about this BPML. How does it actually work in practice?
BPML provides a standardized way to define, execute, and monitor business processes. It uses XML, a common data format, to describe the steps involved in a process. This means that theoretically, any system that understands BPML can execute and interact with any process defined using this language.
So no more custom coding, No more proprietary systems that only a handful of engineers understand.
Right. It's about creating that common ground.
That could be huge for businesses, especially those working with multiple partners or across different geographic locations.
Absolutely. And it's not just about breaking down silos within an organization. BPML also opens the door for better collaboration with external partners and suppliers. Imagine being able to onboard a new supplier with minimal friction because you're both speaking the same process language.
That's a game changer. It's like we're moving from a world of walled gardens to a world of open, interconnected marketplaces.
I like that.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential here. But like anything that's been around for a while, I'm guessing BPM has, gone through some changes over the years. Our authors, they break it down into 3 distinct phases, these waves, they call them. Could you walk us through those?
Sure, absolutely. So, wave 1, think back to like the pre-internet days. Back in the 90s, everyone was talking about business process reengineering. Companies were trying to overhaul entire systems practically overnight, and it often just led to more chaos than clarity. Businesses were wrestling with these very manual processes, right? Reengineering projects that felt like, honestly, trying to, change a tire while the car's still rolling.
Ouch.
Slow, painful, and to be honest, often not all that effective. This was like the first wave of BPM, lots of energy and excitement, but
not quite the results they were hoping for.
Yeah, very mixed result.
Yeah, I bet there were some serious corporate growing pains back then.
Yeah.
So how did we get from there to where we are now?
Well, that's when the second wave came in, with those early workflow systems. Technology started playing a much bigger role. These systems were able to automate specific tasks, which offered a glimpse of what was possible. But they were often limited in scope,
So instead of company-wide solutions, it was more like department by department.
Exactly. Riding the coattails of those massive ERP system implementations, remember those? It was all about standardizing processes, trying to bring some order to to put it lightly, the chaos.
Makes sense.
It's like email replaced memos, which was great and all, but now
we're drowning in emails instead.
Precisely.
So I guess it's like the old saying goes, the more things change,
the more they stay the same. But you see, the problem was these systems, they were often pretty rigid, inflexible. They promised a lot, but what they delivered was, maybe a slightly less chaotic version of how things were always done,
Okay, so more efficient, but not necessarily adaptable, which I'm guessing leads us nicely to this revolutionary wave 3 we've been hearing so much about.
You got it. Wave 3, that's all about embracing dynamism, building processes that are as adaptable as the world demands them to be.
So how does this third wave approach actually play out in the real world? What makes it so groundbreaking? And how does it actually help businesses adapt and thrive?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it takes us right to the heart of what makes this third wave so revolutionary. It takes the ambition of those earlier attempts, the re-engineering desire for fundamental change, and the power of technology from those workflow systems, and combines them into a much more holistic and effective approach. Because you see, it's not just a new way of thinking, it's a whole new set of tools. And one of the most important of these tools is something called a BPMS, Business Process Management System. Think of it like this. A more evolved, smarter version of the software that companies were using before, Back then, technology was mostly about automating tasks. They were already doing those tasks, but they'd just get automated, even if they were part of this clunky, inefficient process.
Kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone, not really addressing the root of the problem.
Perfect analogy. A BPMS, on the other hand, is designed to, automate things, but really it's about improving processes from the ground up. Imagine a digital toolkit that's made just for process management. Every tool you need, right there.
So instead of just doing things faster, it helped you figure out the right way to do things and makes it easier to actually implement those changes.
You got it. And one of the coolest things about a BPMS is something called process modeling. It's like, imagine being able to see the entire business process, everything, start to finish, all the steps, the twists and turns where things get handed off from one person to another. A BPMS lets you visualize all of that so you can spot those bottlenecks, those points where things get stuck much easier.
Okay, so you can see where the problems are, but then how do you actually go about fixing them?
Well, a lot of BPMS platforms come with these built-in simulation tools. You can test things out. You can say, okay, what happens if we add another step here? Or what if we automate this particular task? It's like a virtual laboratory for your business processes.
Wow, so you can experiment and try things out without any real-world consequences if things go wrong.
Exactly, and no risk. You can test and optimize in the safe space before making any big changes.
That's incredible. So it's like having a safety net while you figure out the best way to streamline everything. And you wouldn't need to be like a tech expert to use this, right?
Not at all. That's the beauty of this third wave thing. It's all about making these powerful tools accessible to everyone. You know how spreadsheets came along and revolutionized how we deal with numbers? Suddenly anyone could do complex calculations without needing to be a math whiz. Well, BPMS is kind of like that. It's about making process management something anyone can do, regardless of their technical skills.
Okay, I'm starting to understand how this goes. So instead of being stuck on those train tracks, to borrow your analogy,
Exactly.
we can finally, steer the ship a bit.
Precisely.
But why is BPM so crucial now more than ever, would you say? I mean, what's changed out there in the business world?
Well, it's all about agility these days, wouldn't you
Okay.
say? And there are a bunch of things driving that need. Globalization, commoditization, that means businesses are under more pressure than ever to be cheaper, better, faster, and offer amazing service all at the same time.
No small feat.
Not at all. And on top of that, you've got customers demanding mass customization, total solutions. It's like build to order, but on steroids, and they want personalized processes to go along with it.
So it's not enough to just offer a great product or service anymore. You've got to tailor the entire experience to each customer.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't enough, companies aren't just competing within their own little worlds anymore. They've got these new players coming in with completely different ways of doing things, ready to shake things up.
It's like everyone's suddenly playing a high-stakes game of, I don't know, musical chairs or something, and the music just keeps getting faster.
That's a great way to put it. It's no wonder businesses are feeling the heat. They need to adapt, and quickly, just to stay afloat, which is, I'm guessing, where the power of this third wave of BPM really shines. You've hit the nail on the head. It's about, breaking down that wall that's always existed between business and IT.
Right.
BPM, it's not just an IT thing anymore. It's the language of business now, understood by everyone from the top down.
Hold on, I like that. BPM as a language. Tell me more about that, because that's really resonating with me. How does that actually work in a real company?
A really key concept in third wave BPM is this idea of a unified process definition. BPML creates this standardized way to write down and talk about processes so that everyone's on the same page. Think of it like having a universal set of blueprints that everyone can understand, no matter what department they're in or what their role is. If every team in your company, every supplier you work with, from the CEO down to the intern who just started yesterday, could all describe how work gets done in the exact same way,
Makes a lot of sense when you put it like that.
everyone's on the same page, speaking the same language.
Go.
This shared language, it streamlines communication,
Right.
gets rid of those redundancies you always hear about,
Yeah.
and empowers teams to collaborate much more effectively. That's what this shared language of BPM can do.
So no more crossed wires, no more things slipping through the cracks, just like a well-oiled machine with all the parts working together.
Exactly. A beautiful symphony of business processes, all in sync.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like before, every department had its own secret code or something, but now everyone has the key to crack it. It creates a whole new level of transparency and makes it easier for everyone to collaborate.
You're getting it. And that ability to define processes clearly and share them openly, it's essential for being agile, for responding to changes quickly. Remember all those companies struggling to adapt? Well, with BPML and a really good BPMS, they can be much faster on their feet. They can adjust to new challenges, embrace opportunities, re-engineer themselves on the fly, really.
But, okay, let's break down the benefits a bit more.
Sure.
You mentioned agility, efficiency, collaboration, right?
Right.
What makes those so crucial in the business world today?
Well, agility, that's all about being able to adapt quickly to change.
Right.
Whether it's a sudden shoot in the market, a new competitor, even a global pandemic.
We've seen a lot of that lately.
Right. The businesses that can pivot quickly, those are the ones that survive, that thrive.
They're the ones still standing when the dust settles.
Exactly. And BPM, it gives you that framework for agility. It makes it easier to analyze, adapt, and optimize processes on the fly.
Makes sense. You got to be able to roll with the punches in today's world, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What about efficiency?
Efficiency, well, that's all about doing more with less.
Right.
Eliminating anything that's redundant, streamlining workflows, automating tasks wherever possible.
Okay.
BPM helps you identify those areas where you can optimize, which saves you time, saves you money, saves you resources.
And then frees up resources for more strategic stuff.
Exactly.
Instead of constantly putting out fires, you can actually focus on innovation, on growth.
Exactly. And then there's collaboration.
Right. That was third one.
BPM, it breaks down those silos that can pop up between departments. It encourages a more collaborative, more integrated approach to work.
So instead of everyone operating in their own little bubble,
Right.
you've got teams working together seamlessly towards a shared goal.
Exactly.
That sounds like a recipe for success, if you ask me.
It really is. But it's really important to remember that BPM isn't just about cutting costs or, squeezing every last drop of productivity out of your employees.
So there's more to it than just running a tight ship.
A lot more. Remember Peter Drucker, the famous management consultant?
Yeah.
The purpose of business is to create a customer.
Okay.
And that the two basic functions of business are marketing and innovation.
Okay.
BPM helps create the space for those functions to really flourish.
Because it frees up resources that would have been wasted on inefficient processes.
Precisely. And that brings us to something really crucial about BPM that I think often gets overlooked, the human element.
Ah, yes. Those pesky humans always messing up our perfectly designed processes.
Right.
I'm just kidding, of course.
Yeah.
But seriously, what role do people play in all of this? So often it feels like these new systems get brought in to, replace people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Is BPM different?
It's really the opposite. Technology, it's a tool, right?
Right.
But BPM, it hinges on people actually embracing the change.
Okay.
It's about training, it's about
yeah.
change management,
Right.
building a real BPM competency within the organization. Yeah, it's a journey, not a quick fix.
So it's about empowering people to work smarter, not trying to make them, obsolete.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of BPM, It's not just for these huge corporations.
Right. Okay, now I really like it. But I'm sure some of our listeners are out there thinking, all right, that's all fine and dandy, but show me the receipts. Where's the proof that this actually delivers?
Oh, the proof is out there. And it's pretty impressive, actually. Companies like, say, GE and American Airlines, they've used BPM to really streamline their operations, boost their customer service, even create totally new business models.
Give me some specifics. What have they actually done with BPM?
So in GE, for instance, they completely transformed their procurement process using BPM. We're talking a global trading network connecting thousands of suppliers, managing billions of dollars in transactions, all online. The efficiency is kind of mind-boggling.
That's not just streamlining. It's a whole different ballgame. What about American Airlines? How'd they use BPM?
They took their Sabre reservation system and actually spun it off into its own separate company.
Really?
Yeah. They realized they were so good at managing those processes that they could package it up as a service and sell it to other airlines.
Exactly. Any other, really compelling success stories that you remember from the book?
Oh, there are some incredible stories in there, let me tell you. One that really sticks out is about this telecommunications company. So, picture this. They're completely swamped by all these new customers, more than they can handle.
Their systems were about to go kaput?
Pretty much. Orders were getting lost in the shuffle. Customer service was backed up for days. It was like a recipe for disaster. They were about to lose so much business, not to mention their reputation. Then they decided, okay, let's give this BPM thing a shot.
So they called in the BPM cavalry to save the day. What did that look like in action?
Well, it was actually pretty impressive. They took their BPMS, right, and they used it to map out their whole customer onboarding process, like every single step. They found the worst bottlenecks and then redesigned the whole thing so it could actually handle the volume.
So no more meltdowns, no more crashing and burning.
Exactly. They were able to manage all those new customers without breaking a sweat, and here's the kicker, their customer satisfaction scores actually went up.
Wow. Talk about a win-win.
It really is a perfect example of how taking this process-centric approach, really focusing on those processes, can actually lead to better results for everyone, businesses and customers alike.
Okay. Any other, success stories?
Oh, absolutely. They talk about this department store chain, and they were struggling with, a lot of the same stuff department stores always struggle with, Inventory management, delivery logistics, customer service was all over the place.
Can practically hear the frustrated shoppers now.
But here's what's interesting. Instead of just throwing money at the problem, or even worse, blaming their employees, They did something different.
They finally hopped in that helicopter to see the big picture.
Exactly. They realized their problems weren't just like random accidents. They were symptoms of these much deeper issues within their processes. So they implemented a BPM solution to streamline everything. I'm talking how they ordered and tracked inventory, how they handled customer interactions, all of it.
Okay, and what happened? Did they actually manage to turn things around?
It's pretty amazing, actually. Just by focusing on making those processes better, they were able to cut down on errors big time, improve delivery times, and create a much better, more consistent experience for their shoppers. And the best part, they didn't need to blow up their whole system. They made these small, strategic changes that added up to huge results, especially for their bottom line.
Right, it's not always about these radical reinventions. Sometimes it's those small tweaks that make all the difference. Reminds me of that quote from the book, "Process is our most important product. Good processes don't make winners. Winners make good processes." It's about taking responsibility, right? Always looking for ways to improve.
It's a mindset. And the book makes a really interesting point about this. They say that in the future, the ability to manage and share processes well will be what sets businesses apart. Those who figure out this process excellence thing, those are the ones who are really going to thrive as the world gets more complex and competitive.
And this isn't just about business, is it? I mean, we can apply this process-aware thinking to pretty much anything, can't we?
Oh, absolutely. Think about your own life for a second. How do you manage time? What about your finances, relationships? These are all processes, even if we don't always think of them that way. And by applying these same principles of process management, we can start to optimize all areas of our lives.
But it couldn't have been all smooth sailing, right? I mean, there must have been some bumps in the road, some resistance to these pretty radical changes.
You're absolutely right. BPM isn't some magic bullet, and it'd be naive to think you can just flip a switch and everything's instantly better. Our authors, Smith and Fingar, they're very upfront about the skepticism a lot of executives feel. I mean, who hasn't been burned by some technology that promised the world and, didn't quite deliver?
Right, so how do you overcome that? How do you convince people to give BPM a chance, especially if they've been let down before?
Start small. Prove the value. Pick a process that's a real pain point, maybe something in customer service or supply chain management. Show them how BPM can actually make a difference. Once people see results, the momentum will build from there.
It's that seeing is believing thing,
yeah.
right? You've got to give them a taste of what's possible. So if we loop back to this idea of BPM as a language, and I keep thinking about that spreadsheet comparison you made earlier, is there a link there?
Absolutely. Just like spreadsheets changed how we do financial analysis, BPM has the potential to democratize business processes, make them something everyone can understand and work with, not just the IT department. Imagine a company where anyone can analyze and even improve the processes they use every day. That's powerful stuff.
Okay, I'm with you. So as we start to wrap things up here, what's the one thing our listeners should take away from all of this?
This third wave of BPM, it's not a fad, it's not going away. It's a fundamental shift how businesses work. And the ones that get it, that really embrace it, they'll have a serious advantage in the coming years.
You're saying companies can't afford to ignore this?
Exactly. That's business today. You need that agility, that responsiveness, and that's where BPM comes in.
But if you're used to doing things the old way, it seems like a lot.
It doesn't have to be overwhelming, and that's the beauty of BPM.
So a more gradual approach, not just ripping off the Band-Aid.
Exactly. And remember, it's not just about the tech, the software. It's about building a culture of improvement. Everyone feels empowered to look at things, tweak things, make them better.
Which I think brings me to my last, and it's a big one, question. Imagine, if you will, the future of business. What if your company could change as fast as we can think? Any decision, any adjustment, bam, implemented across the whole organization instantly. Is that even possible?
That's the dream, right? An organization that's as fluid and adaptable as the human mind. We're not there yet. But the potential, it's definitely there.
So the future of business is process-driven. And getting that, really learning the language of BPM, that's what's going to separate the winners.
From those who get left behind.
Exactly.
Well said. And if you can master those processes, you're not just improving efficiency, you're shaping the future of your entire organization.
That's a powerful thought to end on. This deep dive into BPM, this third wave, the whole new way of thinking about how work gets done and how businesses can thrive in a world that just never stops changing.
And that's the key, isn't it? We're not just managing processes, we're shaping the future one optimized step at a time.
I like it.
We've just scratched the surface here, but hopefully this has given everyone a taste of what's possible.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, we'll leave you with this. Embrace those processes. Start small. Never stop learning. The future is waiting to be built, and you might as well be the architect.